Okay guys, today we are going to do something a little bit different and get into some MX versus ATV Untamed. I do it occasionally on the channel. It's been a while, it's been about a year I believe since we did MX versus ATV Untamed, but new year 2024, how does this game feel in 2024? And surprisingly enough, it still plays out really good. So this game released for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and I'm actually playing it on an Xbox One X, not a Series X, not the new Xbox, but I'm not sure about PlayStation. I know for sure for Xbox you can get it as backwards compatible, so that's how I'm doing it. I don't have any of my progress, so I don't have like tons of credits, money, whatever, but the game itself is still very, very fun. Now, maybe, I'm not too nostalgic with stuff, so I'm not gonna say it's a nostalgia that makes it feel really good in 2024 still. I personally do believe that even if you haven't played this game, and I know there probably is some people that have played a lot of MX versus ATV games, but maybe missed this one, it still plays really well. There is one thing I kind of want to talk about eventually throughout the video that I feel like kind of hindered this game a little bit, especially coming from MX vs. ATV Unleashed, and then I do believe it would be Reflex that came after it. So there's one thing in particular I feel like this game didn't do maybe quite as good as some of the other MX vs. ATV games did, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So I have a bunch of stuff in this video. We have this one and a quarter laps on Split Oak B, I believe. A motocross track. There was a bunch of motocross tracks. The motocross tracks in general were really, really well done. Very flowy, very fast paced. The pace in this game was unbelievably fast. It did have a clutch boost and a preload. It was just a single stick control, but very fast, and it was very satisfying to downside jumps and hit rhythm sections and just get through those rhythm sections in a really good way. Here we switch over to some Supercross. I believe this was Norton. Pretty easy Supercross track, but the Supercross tracks were very similar to the motocross tracks where they were extremely flowy, pretty big scale. I mean, there was some very, very big jumps and rhythms you could take on the Supercross tracks, but very flowy, very satisfying, and just worked out really well for the way this game played, right? But Norton, one of my favorite tracks, I would say Jefferson Capital City, Norton here. Just a few tracks, a few of the Supercross tracks that I really did prefer, even if they were a bit easy. But yeah, Supercross here. Now I kind of want to talk about the one thing I do feel like hindered the game a little bit, but I still feel like it's a very underrated MX versus ATV game. The game had everything in it, all the modes, all the vehicles, and it was just really fun. Bunches of stuff. But the one thing I feel like went against it were the physics a little bit. Not all the physics, but the bike and rider, specifically the bike physics, the way you could move the bike in the air. I don't feel like they were free, but I don't feel like they were as free as, MX versus ATV Unleashed. We came from that, and then it feels like they were stiffened up a bit for this title. And then obviously Reflex was a huge jump forward for MX versus ATV and the game franchise. So that's really the only thing I feel like went against this game. And I'm not saying they weren't good. They were good. The game was fun, but they weren't the best physics, from any MX versus ATV game. So in my opinion, that would be what went against the game and maybe made some people not like it. I mean, you could still throw whips and scrubs. I mean, there was an actual scrub button, I believe. So you could do that stuff. You couldn't do it as easy as you could in some other MX versus ATV games. And then here we have some Freestyle. I actually spent a bunch of time in Freestyle because, to be honest with you, I don't know if there was another MX versus ATV game that had better freestyle than this game. Let me know in the comments which MX versus ATV game was your favorite as far as throwing tricks and the maps, the arenas for freestyle, but the maps that you could choose from for freestyle, both the indoor and outdoor, were incredible. They were absolutely incredible. The tricks, the trick library, the way you could chain together different tricks and, you know, do a backflip with a flatliner or whatever, it looked so good. Even today in 2024, it looks so good. The 360, really well done, and some of that stuff was actually kind of difficult to do. I did crash fairly often, mostly because I'm not very good at freestyle, but in this game, I actually really enjoyed it. So probably one of the biggest parts in this video was the freestyle, just because I had a bunch of fun on it. So freestyle, in my opinion, was maybe the best it's ever been in any MX versus ATV game. Again, the motocross tracks were phenomenal. I would say they're up there with some of the best motocross tracks ever made for an MX versus ATV game. Supercross tracks would be the same way. And then you had all the modes. And then you can't forget about the soundtrack. The soundtrack for this game was incredible. The AI were really, really challenging. They could be incredibly challenging. They actually had a bunch of different like difficulties you could choose from for the AI, plus you had the difficulty for each track and whatnot. I remember playing this game in the past and people be like, he's not playing on all-time or legendary or whatever. It says easy. Well, the tracks themselves have a difficulty depending on how tough they were. We also had mini moto, man. We've had the pit bike in specific games, but MX vs. ATV Unleashed and Untamed, I believe, were the only games we've gotten that had dedicated, you know, pit bike tracks. We did get it with the Sleigh Ground DLC, but we don't have pit bikes. We know we're getting them probably in the future, but no pit bike yet. So the dedicated, there was only 2 of them, but the 2 dedicated pit bike tracks, the pit bike, it was incredibly cartoony. I mean, the clutch boost and preload for this tiny little bike was, you know, small but mighty. Small but mighty, but the tracks, really cool. The 50s, and we had Endurocross. I didn't get any Endurocross in the video, but we had Endurocross, we had Supermoto, we had, I don't know, just amazing freeride maps. I didn't really cover the freeride stuff because I did do a video not too long ago going over some of the best freeride worlds ever made in any MX vs. ATV game, and MX vs. ATV Untamed topped the list for me. So we had just went over that, but the freeride worlds were incredible. Just there really was no negative about the game for me, and that all comes across still in 2024. I don't even know when this game came out. 2005 or 6 maybe, because Reflex came out in 2009, so I'm not really sure, but yeah, the game still holds up today. And if you have an Xbox, maybe you can do it on PlayStation, I'm not really sure, but if you do, I highly encourage you to try the game out. Again, coming back just to wrap stuff up, the only thing that this game I feel like could have done a bit better were the physics. And the in-air physics, the ground physics, the whoop physics were actually pretty difficult. The way the bike would you couldn't really move in the whoops, you know. For instance, Milestone, those whoops are just an afterthought and they're really easy and kind of boring. But in this game, the way they felt with the bike, they did a pretty good job. And I haven't really felt that since, besides Legends. Legends has had some incredibly difficult whoop sections, but yeah, just the way the bike kind of, you know, you have freedom, but the freedom feels limited to some degree and maybe a little bit stiff, especially coming from Unleashed and then going on to Reflex. It does feel a bit stiff, but I don't feel like that makes it a bad game. It is still an incredible game, in my opinion, one of the best ever made, and just a little bit underrated. I've seen a bunch of people say the same thing, and I don't really know how big this one was. I don't know how successful it was. I feel like it's just one of those MX vs. ATV games that gets a bit overlooked, but let me know in the comments what you guys think. I'd be really curious to see. Kind of wanted to test it out, see how it holds up. We might go back and do some other stuff, but it's always fun to, to come back to MX versus ATV and just have a bit of fun. I've been doing this for so long. Sometimes it just feels like habit to do stuff on the channel, but it was fun. It was really fun coming back and playing this game and putting the fun back in moto games for myself and just YouTube in general. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But you guys and girls are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the support on the channel lately. It really does mean a lot. And until the next video, take it easy.